Okay, welcome to the Allegany County Commissioner Candidate Forum. The Allegany County Republican Women's Club is hosting this event to increase awareness of who the candidates are, and we're here to help voters make informed decisions for the primary election on July 19th. My name is Tanya Gomer, and I'm the current president of the Allegany County Republican Women's Club. Along with myself, we have Diana Squires, who is our second vice president. She will serve as our timekeeper. And Mr. Jason Huber is our videographer for today. In Allegany County, there are 3 county commissioner seats. This position is probably one of the most important in this election, as it directly impacts your daily lives. Allegany County has been a code home rule county since 1974. That means that these positions self-govern by legislative power in matters of structure, power, procedure, services, without needing approval of the General Assembly. And the county commissioners have the power to appoint county officers, supervisors, and agents, assess and levy and collect taxes, be involved in health and nuisances as it pertains to the County Board of Health, be trustees to the poor, enact laws for historic landmarks and zoning and preservation of land development, enact laws for your protection and promotion of public safety and health. This also includes roads, waste disposal, soil erosion, zoning, planning, and building ordinances. They enter into agreements and ordinances for resolutions, establish and appoint members to boards, grant franchises under existing laws, and guarantee loans to volunteer fire departments. They have lots of control over property owned by the county, which includes our roads and bridges. We also, the county commissioners, are responsible for keeping prisoners, making use of federal and state financial assistance for economic development, participate in federally assisted projects for the watershed, flood prevention, drainage improvement projects, and they also are the approval authority for accepting any grants or borrowing money. As you can see, that's a lot of responsibility, and it's all within our county commissioners, and why this is such an important part of the election on a local level. We will be recording this event, and it will be shared at a later time for broad distribution on social media outlets. The format will be a roundtable style where each of you will be given the opportunity to be the first to answer in each round. We will go in alphabetical order, and you will be given 2 minutes to respond, and the timekeeper will give you a yellow card when you have 30 seconds remaining, and a red card when your time has expired. We were prepared for 7, but now that we're down to 6 people on the panel, you will have 6 rounds of questions, and then it'll be opened up to the audience for any additional questions. Everybody ready to get started? Okay, first question is for you, Mr. Atkinson. Please introduce yourself, share where you are from, and give some details about your family, profession, education, and experience, as well as your motivation for running to serve as a county commissioner for Allegany County.
All right, well, I'm Bill Atkinson. I'm a lifelong Republican and a lifelong resident of Allegany County. I'm currently retired from the state of Maryland, where I worked for over 30 years in public service between the state and city of Frostburg. So I have a very good understanding of how government works and how things get done on a government level. I graduated from Bell High School in 1978 and then graduated from Frostburg State University with a degree in business administration, concentration in marketing. During my tenure at working for the Department of Planning, I was able to do lots of projects within the county. I was able to do all kinds of work through all 3 counties, actually. We worked through the Appalachian Regional Commission in establishing funding for many of the roads, infrastructure that you mentioned earlier, also for the schools, and for a lot of the industrial parks and economic development. This time, I was relaxing and enjoying retirement and decided that I still had this passion for trying to make a difference in this area, trying to grow, trying to do things, try to make a better place for everyone to live, work, and play. And I found that I still wanted to see what we can do to get things done. It was one of the things we worked hard on when we were working for the state, was getting projects done, completing the projects, and seeing what we could do from there. One of the great accomplishments that I had when I worked for the state was completing the Great Allegany Passage, which was a great project that we got to coordinate between not only ourselves, but the state of Pennsylvania and all the other counties and towns within this county. So that was a huge accomplishment, and again, something that I was proud of, that we were able to get done this multi-million-dollar project within the county to help spur some economic development.
Okay, Commissioner Brody.
Hi, my name is Creed Brody. I am an Allegany County Commissioner and have been for the past 12 years. I'm also a native of Frostburg, a graduate of Bell. My family has been in this county since the late 1740s or early 1750s, depending on which book you look at. I originally run for office in 2010 on a couple very simple premises. I don't like taxes, and I'm not a fan of the government, period. Big government especially. I don't like the way that we've been wiped out and our heritage has been wiped out in this area. It all started for me one night in Mount Savage at an event I was at, and we got into a discussion on how our views and past history is being lost. So I said, well, you know what? I believe I can change it at a local level. At a local level, I've sure been trying to keep us what we are. We are a blue-collar county, regardless of what anyone says. And that's my background. My background is in infrastructure. Public Works is the largest department Allegany County has. I like to help people and I try to help people. And that's the big reason for running for Commissioner again. Thank you.
Commissioner Caparelli.
My name is Dave Caparelli. I was born and raised in Cumberland. I attended St. Patrick Grade School, which eventually became St. John Newman. I am a graduate of Bishop Walsh High School in 1989, and I also attended Frostburg State University, and I'm a graduate from Frostburg State. While I was at Frostburg State, I was very involved in the college Republicans. Some years later, I was appointed to the Central Committee, Republican Central Committee, and I served 2 terms there. Eventually, I had a friend, probably the same way with you, Creed, that encouraged me to run for City Council in Cumberland, where I served 2 terms, and I'm currently finishing my first term as Allegany County Commissioner. I'm running again because I feel strongly of some of the things we've accomplished during the past 4 years and look forward to continuing that. Thank you.
Jonathan Dayton is next.
Hello everyone, my name is Jonathan Dayton. I'm a lifelong resident of Allegany County. Can't say I was born and raised here, but I was adopted at 4 months and have lived here ever since. I'm from Westernport, Maryland, also known as the Crick. I went to Westernport Elementary School, then went to Westbar Middle School, and then graduated from Mountain Ridge High School. I'm also a graduate of Frostburg State University with a bachelor's degree, and then also have a master's degree in management and leadership from Western Governors University. When I'm looking at these positions of the county commissioners and all the open positions throughout this election, when there's ever an opportunity for me to make a difference in my community, I always step up to the plate. In addition to living and working and playing here, I, back in high school, was appointed to the Maryland Youth Advisory Council by the Speaker of the House. I had the great honor of serving 2 terms down in Crownsville in the Annapolis area, testifying on a lot of bills. And as one of the lonely Republican youth leaders on that council, I had to bring a lot of expertise, but a lot of voice to Annapolis in that area. So I have a lot of experience with government and how government works. Locally here, I'm also a firefighter, EMT at the volunteer level. I volunteer again with my home department of Westernport, and then I'm also with Baltimore Pike Volunteer Fire Company, where I currently reside just outside of city limits near Rocky Gap. And again, opportunity to make a difference. When I look at the government it is today and looking at ways and people live, work, and play, I often see that a lot of individuals that are my age that I went to school with do not live here any longer. I'm trying to make a difference where individuals can live here, can find a job, and just make the better society as a whole. Thank you.
And Mr. Todd Logston.
Thank you, Tanya. Hello, everyone. My name is Todd Logston, another lifelong resident of Allegany County, along with a lot of other folks here. I'm born at Memorial Hospital, right over across the street there. Have spent my life growing up in Frostburg. I attended Bell High School and was fortunate enough to graduate in the first class at the new Mountain Ridge High School. I then went on to Frostburg State University, where I received 2 degrees. One is in political science with a concentration in public administration, and the other is in secondary education. I'm currently employed as a teacher at Mountain Ridge High School, where I teach history and civics. And I'm involved with a lot of civic organizations in my community. I'm a volunteer fireman at the Frostburg Fire Department. I'm a member of the Republican Central Committee for Allegany County and also the Maryland State Republican Central Committee. And the reason that I chose to run for office, or the reason that I felt called to run for county commissioner is, I think, like a lot of us, I see a lot of potential. I see so much opportunity to do the things that everyone wishes could be done, but we sort of don't know what to do. Everyone in this room and everyone watching this recording knows someone who either grew up here and went away for economic opportunity or to make something that couldn't be done here, or for whatever reason, saw success somewhere else, and we would like to have that here too. We run into a lot of obstacles. We run into a lot of challenges. Some are population related, geographic related, red tape related. I want to make a difference for our community so that my children, your children, generations to come can call this area home and can be as proud of it as we are. Thank you.
If you could pass the mic up to Commissioner Brody. The next question. Do you have any financial or business conflicts which would concern the issue of growth restrictions and zoning in the county where you would have to recuse yourself from voting? So if you have any financial ties to anything, whereas at a county level, if you had to vote on a matter, you'd have to recuse yourself.
Not that I'm aware of. I'm just trying to think, because there's an echo here and I'm kind of hard of hearing. So there's nothing I would do that I have to recuse myself from for a vote. I'm actually in business for myself, me and a partner. So unless the county was dealing, just trying to think of how that would work. Thank you.
I'm also a no. In my time at the city and at the county, there's never been a time I've had to recuse myself from a vote.
Just to clarify the question, you're talking about property, correct?
Any type of property or business dealings that you would have to recuse yourself from a vote?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm employed by a statewide nonprofit organization, and there's nothing that I can think of offhand that I would have to recuse myself from.
The only thing I could think of is, as an employee of the Board of Education, anytime there was a matter that came as far as funding, that may be that sounds like a question that the county attorney would have to clarify. I would think if there was funding related to the Board of Education, that may be a conflict. Other than that, I can't think of anything. As far as land, I own 1/2 an acre of land in Frostburg where my house is. That's it. I have no business dealings, no anything else.
Yeah, I'm retired, so other than owning a house, I do have a private consulting business that I just do some work under in economic development, but there'd be no reason for me to have any reason to excuse myself for anything.
Very good. I knew that'd be a quick and easy one. The next one's not going to be so easy. The FY 2023 budget is $101,936,577. 39% goes to education, 26% to public safety, 11% to public works, 10.5% to general government operations, 7% to recreation, 4% to social services and health, and less than 1% to economic development. What one part of county government would you like to see receive more attention, and which do you feel is the most effective department and why?
Well, working closely with all of our departments over the past 4 years, I've developed a strong relationship with all of our department heads and have a lot of faith in each of them. I work more closely. I think Creed would also say that he works a little bit more with public works. That's a little bit more in his skill set. And I have worked more closely with economic development. Now, I know that that is also stated that's at 1%, but that does not account for money that comes in from leases, rents, and other monies that come into the county that assist economic development. I sort of chose that because that's a little bit more of my interest and a little bit more of my expertise, but I also feel that money coming in helps drive the other departments. If we don't have money coming in through economic development, et cetera, we won't have money for roads, we won't have additional money for the Board of Education and things along those lines. But yeah, I feel strongly and try to work with and help assist every department as necessary and as much as possible.
great question. Looking at the breakdown of percentages to all these different departments, I think the first thing I would do as county commissioner would be to sit down with all the department heads and really look over their budget to see where the employees really feel that is necessary to increase or to decrease budgets. Just looking off the offhand, there's two in particular that I want to talk on. The first one is education. Education is extremely important to me. Going to high school locally here, I understand some of the challenges that the teachers and the Board of Education has the constraints they have when it comes to budgets. I think it's very important that we're investing in our youth so that our youth has an opportunity to stay here locally. The other one there is, again, as a firefighter, EMT, and very familiar with public safety, I would love to take a little bit more of a deeper dive into the public safety budget. One of the things that I did prior to the debate was I really talked to not only employees of DES, but also employees of the Sheriff's Office. And one of the things that I found that was very alarming was the concern for staffing across the board for EMTs, firefighters, paramedics, law enforcement deputies, etc. And so figuring out a way where we can leverage some of those monies within their budget for some sort of a recruitment program to hire more officers, deputies, and paramedics and EMTs, I think is vitally important.
I agree with things that have already been said by both candidates. I think that if it could be narrowed down, economic development, it is true, is the engine that drives everything else. The people that come here, the people that live here currently and people that will move here and will come here pay the taxes that pay all of those other things. So it is vitally important that we concentrate on economic development in a real and sustaining way in the sense that retail operations, tourism operations are things that help with economic development, but they are not permanently sustainable economic development. If we need to recruit career type salary jobs that will incentivize people to come and work here. Along the public safety lines also, one thing that goes with that and goes with economic development is housing. The housing market, not just in Allegany County, the housing market on a larger societal level is slim pickings, to use sort of a folksy word. People would love to come to Allegany County, and we have lots of opportunities, and we've seen if anything good came out of the COVID situation, not to say that there was anything good with COVID, but it's that people figured out they don't have to live in the city. People don't have to live in the city to have a good paying job that they can support their family with. They can live in a rural, in a more pastoral area like this. The problem is we don't have any housing. And we don't have what people who are from more urban areas are used to. So economic development is the key, and that's where we're going.
Good question. But as you can see from those percentages, there's not a lot of leeway for the county commissioners in the amount of money they have to do things that need to be done within the county. So one of the things I think we have to do that's been said is economic development. It is the driver, it is the engine. It's a way that we can increase making money for the county without increasing taxes, which we don't want to do. So how can we increase the money coming into the county that we have to spend? And that is through economic development. It is through tourism and other developments that we can do. It's economic development with, as we stated earlier, with bringing in some of the tech jobs and with bringing in people who could live and work anywhere, that we can bring them here to do some of that work here, and some of the back office work that's being done in some of the metropolitan cities that doesn't need to be done there that we could bring here. But also in the school system. When I worked with the state through the Appalachian Regional Commission, we did some work with their new program that they did for teaching different ways in school so that we could get different lab work and different ways of teaching the students. I think that was a good way to try to improve on the way we educate our kids in a little different way. And it was very successful in the elementary schools that they had did a pilot program for. And I think that's something we could expand on in working with the Board of Ed and trying to change that curriculum a little bit so that we are in better shape. Again, economic development leads back to, are your schools good enough for people that want to come here? And again, housing is the other part of that economic development equation, that we need to find a way to increase our housing productivity in the county.
Thank you. Well, I can clarify a lot of this up here pretty quick, because the general budget's 101, actual total county budget's but $132 million because there's a lot of stuff that's not in there, such as the water and sewer treatment plants that we operate and the roads and this and that. That all stands outside the general budget. Economic development's budget for general budget appropriations is small because they're self-sustaining. I mean, that would be pretty embarrassing to have an economic development department that couldn't sustain itself. So they are doing quite well. One thing I do think that we still lack on is in the public safety sector, and that's actually over with the sheriff's department. We was actually fortunate enough to create 3 new positions this year. The problem with that is, with state law and everything right now, it's hard to retain and hire deputies because we're trying to criminalize the deputies and hero the criminals. So I don't know where that's all going to end. Hopefully in a good way, because right now what's going on in the country is affecting Allegany County and not in a good way. And give you some quick examples. In the year 2000, we issued just right under 200 building permits a year. That's what Allegany County issued for years. We averaged anywhere from 150 to 200 a year. Last year, we issued 17. The state of Maryland implemented a lot of things such as smart growth. It just killed our housing industry. The main thing that we compete with is Somerset County and Mineral County across state lines that they do not have to form with this. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. In the 2020 election, there were 22,000 Republicans, 13,000 Democrats, and 8,000 nonpartisan voters in Allegany County. How will you align yourself to ensure that all citizens of Allegany County are equally represented?
That's a very good question. Aligning yourself with other parties, other people. You know, I've always been a straight shooter. I've always told it how it was, and I've always tried to see different viewpoints. You know, working in the healthcare space, we all know the COVID regulations and public health was definitely something that was on the front burner for many years. And as an official in public health, it was imperative for me to see both sides of the situation. Also, to keep politics, also was very involved during a lot of those policies and implementation periods. And so, again, just seeing both sides and listening is, I guess, very important. You know, a long time ago, a wise person once told me sometimes it's best not to open your mouth, but to listen. And I hold that very true, and I've done that the entire campaign. I think to really align yourself and make sure that all the voices in Allegany County are heard, it takes that open ear. And I would continue to do that while in office. You know, it's also important to me to see that the majority, as you mentioned, are registered Republicans, and that majority is also heard loud and clear. And you know, the one thing I've learned throughout this campaign is a lot of people in Allegany County is not registered to vote. And you know, I encourage people to get out and vote, because those are the voices that we want to hear. And again, I think to sum that all up is just make sure that we have an open ear to everyone, and that everyone's voice is heard. And again, making sure that the county commissioners are present at all locations within Allegany County. That includes Luke, Westernport, Barton, all the way to the other side of Orleans. Thank you.
Thank you. As was stated earlier, I am an official with the Republican Party of Allegany County. I'm a member of the Republican State Central Committee, so therefore I do have the ear of the Republican voters of this county, who are a majority, a slim majority, but a majority nevertheless. But that being said, as a hopefully elected official that represents everyone in this county, it is important to remember, and I'll be the first person to tell you, I am not right all the time. Actually, my wife might be the first person to tell you I'm not right all the time. But I'll be the second person to tell you that I'm not always right, and it is absolutely vital to listen to concerns, not just from people from different political parties, but as Jonathan stated, people from different geographical areas. We are small, but we are still a very geographically, economically, culturally diverse community, and everyone identifies. I mean, when you talk to somebody, everyone identifies with the neighborhood they grew up in, the street they grew up on, what school they went to. We have a lot of different perspectives. The 68,000 and some odd citizens that live in Allegany County have 68,000 and some odd different viewpoints of how their life works, and it is crucial to take into consideration all of that and to keep your ear to the ground and to be understanding that you're not as smart as you think you are, and somebody else has information that could help you. So it is absolutely crucial to work with everyone.
Well, with my experience working with the state of Maryland for 30 years and as a Republican in a Republican county, we constantly had to deal with the Democrats and independents in that downstate. So we learned very early that it is about communication. It's about sitting down and talking things through. It's about coming to common ground so that we all understand what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish. So you have to listen to everybody on all sides and then find the middle ground, find somewhere that you all can come together, work it out, and come up with the solutions that everyone in the majority can understand and everybody in the majority can take on to that responsibility and take you and help you to implement all of those changes or anything else you want to do.
Boy, this is a hard question because this is going to come from experience. I've never asked anyone to come to me for help which party they belong to. I'd like to think that we can get together and work things out and find a compromise and a solution. And anyone that's been married for 35 plus years will tell you that that's the only way to get anything done. But in the same sense as that, I also don't believe in selling out who I am. I like to stick to my morals and stick to my principles and won't be talked down into something wrong regardless how many people was against it. Sometimes this is a lonely job. You got to make decisions. It's not popular at all. And believe you me, when you do that, because you're not a popular person, there's a lot of people who will have an opinion and they'll tell you what you're doing wrong without all the facts. So it's a very, very tough position. But as far as getting politics in it, I think as long as everyone, regardless what party they're in, if they do what's right by the people, in the end, the people will understand.
I think we can obviously speak from experience though too. It seems like over the years, in some cases, we have seen administrations sort of shun Western Maryland over the years. If you're elected to a position, you have a responsibility to serve all the people. So I think that you look at that first and foremost. It sort of was easier for me coming up, maybe at the city of Cumberland, because it was a nonpartisan position. So sometimes, politics or even party were set aside a bit. But again, I think having a relationship and being able to deal with a variety of people in Annapolis when we need help that we need up here in Western Maryland is essential.
Okay, we're starting with Mr. Logston this time. In recent months, there's been a lot of talk about understanding how taxes are computed at the county level. Do you plan to promote any changes to existing taxes in the next 4 years if you're elected?
Do I plan to promote, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the rest.
Any changes?
Any changes to the
the
county
current-
tax code?
Correct.
None. Maybe down, but I doubt it, that's it.
I think that's another one of those where you have to sit down with those people who work with those taxes every day and trust your staff at the county level to guide you and to help you to understand where all that money is going and how it's going. I would not change anything to increase any of the taxes, but would definitely look at what else can we do to maybe better use those taxes. But I wouldn't know enough at this point to be able to speak to how we would change that at all.
The first 8 years we was in office, we actually put a tax reduction in the property tax in place. We flatlined it for the last 4. I'd be in favor of putting it back in place. It wasn't a big cut, it was a small cut, but it kept us going the right way. And what it also does is keeps government in check. So this past year we was able to cut the personal property tax and the income tax, a little bit, which helped out significantly. And I'd like to see us in the next 4 years, whoever's up here, revisit the property tax issue.
I know there was a lot of discussion regarding this matter, particularly leading up to our budget this year. We did vote to lower the income tax. I was hesitant because of that, not because I didn't want to give the money back to people, because of economic uncertainty going forward. If you're lowering, are you preparing yourself? Can you hold the line in the year after that and the year after that? So I was looking further down the road. I would not be opposed to revisiting those numbers, next year, hopefully. But I was looking ahead, and that's the only reason I had hesitation about considering hold the line because of future budgets and future economic uncertainty. The property tax in particular. Yes, the assessments were up this year, but already interest rates are rising at a very quick rate. So a year from now, what are those numbers going to look like? They'll probably be drastically lower. So I took that into consideration this year, and we're just looking ahead to have a solid budget in the future.
No new taxes, no change to the tax code, if anything lower. However, I think it's imperative that we also look at some alternative funding opportunities for the county. There's other funding opportunities out there through the state and through the feds that doesn't have to involve addressing anything to do with the county taxpayer money.
Now we're back to the beginning. Since we went so fast because there's 2 people not here tonight, what would be your final message to convince the community to vote for you for Allegany County Commissioner?
Well, I've been a leader for 30 years through state government and getting things done. I know the inner workings of government. I know how to get things done. I'm not afraid to make decisions, whether they are the ones that people like or don't like, but you have to look at it to see what is in the best interest of the county as a whole and what can move us forward. I think we need to look at various opportunities that are in front of us that we can take advantage of, bringing high-tech jobs to the area. I know we are a blue-collar area, but there's a lot more going on. Frostburg State University is opening up an innovation lab where they're bringing in lots of tech companies. I think we can work with that and expand on that. We have Western Maryland Works that is doing a lot of training for our trades and our blue-collar workers. There's room for expansion on that and to bring people in for that. I think we can look at different industries that are interested in our outdoor recreation. Everyone looks at tourism and says, oh, it's just low-interest tourism jobs. But the third part of that is that it's also jobs that we can try to attract in those industries that want to be near outdoor recreation and outdoor activities. And that is something I think we can look forward to trying to move forward with that. I think if you look at all the economic development studies that have been done recently, they all tell us the same thing. We're not going to attract any large industry for the most part because we don't have the workforce, we don't have a high medium household income. The ways they have suggested we change that is to grow within. I think we need to do a better job of improving what we do for our local businesses and industry in order to grow from within so that those industries and businesses can grow. They will stay here once they grow because they're homegrown. And how do we make them a better place for people to work? And I think we need to look at how do we change to become the best place that you love to live, work, and play. And you got to love where you live. That's how we make it a better place.
I'll keep the closing remark very short and simple. I've got a record that I can stand on for the last 12 years. Probably not going to change moving forward. I'll say this to everyone sitting here in the audience, the most important thing in your life is what you have at home. The county will survive. I think you've got a group of very, very good candidates to choose from. I think regardless who you choose from at this table, you've picked a winner. With that being said, good luck, guys, to everyone. And thank you all for coming out and listening tonight.
Mom and Dad would probably try and ground me if I didn't mention that I run our family business. We've been in the area since 1906, Caproli's Bakery, and I think when you have a connection with your community, you obviously have a passion and a deep care and a love for your community. And I would do anything that we can do up here to make Allegany County better and move it forward. I think looking back over the past 4 years particularly, we have a large investment from FedEx coming in. They're putting a large expansion out Route 51. But I think you have to look a little bit deeper. A lot of the companies that are here are expanding and reinvesting. And I think that speaks in volumes too, because they've been here, they've worked here, and they're growing their businesses here. They're choosing to expand here and make a larger footprint. Particularly Hunter Douglas, American Woodmark, and Grow West, 3 I can think of just off the top of my head that have been growing and adding positions over the past 4 years. So I think we're going in the right direction. I want to stay on that direction and keep moving forward, and appreciate your vote on July 19th. Thank you for having us.
first, thank you to the audience for being here and Tanya for organizing this debate and forum. A lifelong resident of Allegheny County, I'll be honest with you, when I went to high school, one of the first things that I thought about was where was I going to go to college that wasn't in Allegheny County. I sought after a lot of different universities all over the country, and the one thing that kept me at Frostburg State was that community. Not only was it family ties, but serving my community in the fire company and the EMS department and really getting to know a lot of the individuals that live here really kept me grounded. And what I saw was opportunity for myself to grow here. And I know that's tough for some people to see, and a lot of individuals that are my age, they don't see that opportunity. And I think it's important that I show them that opportunity. One of the other things that we talked about tonight was economic development. And it's very sad to me driving around the county and seeing a lot of different open positions. Hiring here, hiring now. There's a bonus to come here and work for me. It's very unfortunate. One of the things that we need to focus on is that population growth here in Allegheny County. You can expand the economy and expand businesses all you want, but you have to have those people to fill those jobs. And when we fill jobs, it's making sure that our communities are safe and people want to live here, that our streets are safe. And just not too long ago, you can keep your door unlocked and your front door unlocked and you don't have to worry about it. And that's what drives economic development. A different approach. People think that other things drive economic development, but I truly think that having those safe streets and safe towns and neighborhoods is really what drives it. Not only for the people, but for the businesses as well. Businesses want to come to an area like Allegheny County when they see that it's a safe place to live, work, and play. So thank you.
In closing, I'd just like to say I love Allegheny County. I love everything about it. I love our people. I love our natural resources. I love the geography. I love our history because it's yours and mine, for generations and generations. My relatives, ancestors, and yours have lived here, and we've all loved everything that there is about Allegheny County, and there are fewer and fewer of us. And the reason that I'm running for Allegheny County Commissioner is because I want your children and mine and our future generations to experience the same things that we experienced when we grew up here. And I want more people to come and understand what Allegheny County has to offer and why we're here. I'm interested in results. I'm not interested in credit. I tell people all the time, I know I'm not that good looking, so I don't like to get my picture taken. I am not interested in taking credit for what happens. I'm interested in seeing results. If a company comes here and they fill up one of the empty shell buildings that the county owns and they get it off the county's books and they employ 100 people, 200 people, those families are going to send their kids to our schools, they're going to eat in our restaurants, they're going to ride the Gap Trail, they're going to participate in our recreation, they're going to call Allegheny County home, and eventually they'll love it like we do. And that's what I want, and that's what will make me feel better. So on July 19th, decide if that's what you want to, and decide if you love Allegheny County, and vote with your heart. And I appreciate your time. Thank you, Tanya, and thank you to everyone that came out.
We can now open it up if there's anyone in the audience that has a question for the commissioners.
Yeah, as far as housing goes in the area specifically, how do you feel about more low-cost or Section 8 housing, maybe in Cumberland, LaVale, or the Frostburg area?
Do you have a particular order you want us to go into?
You have the mic.
Oh, okay. I have the mic. All right, I'll go down. Well, thanks, Kathy, for your question. Listen, I understand what the concerns are with Section 8 housing and with the, everyone talks about the prison population, what it brings. It's not ideal, but we can't build any housing right now if we don't have land to do it and if we don't have resources. One of the things that, especially in the city, but all over the county, we deal with an issue is blighted property. It needs to be cleaned up, and it needs to be turned into useful, resourceful land that can be used. I mean, anybody that's looking to buy a house in Allegany County right now, there is very little to choose from. I mean, when my wife and I bought our house last year, we looked and looked and looked, and at any time, there's X number of houses for sale, but 90% of them are either rentals, or they're blighted, or they're falling down, or they're this or that. There's very little single-family home construction available in Allegany County, so we need to make more of that available to people who are going to come and work and live here.
I think this is kind of a two-part answer to your question. You know, one of the things I've just seen recently, and actually it was today, was there was the town of Westport was offering grant opportunities for homeowners. And Todd's right, the blighted properties, not only in Cumberland and Westport, but across Allegany County is unfortunate. You know, those grants go to improving your houses in the market. Not too long ago, again, I was in the same situation where my wife and I wanted to move. We were living in a small apartment, and trying to find housing was extremely tough. We considered building, but then again, there was no property for sale, and we looked at houses, and then there was no houses for sale. So a search that should have took 1 to 3 months took about a year and a half to do. So looking at the expanding property, I think is important too. But you know, one thing we also mentioned earlier today was that telework opportunity for individuals to come live here and want to live here and want to work here. But that also means that we have to expand on our broadband as well. So I think that we all understand those concerns with Section 8 housing and what that brings to the community. And I think there's some alternative solutions to housing that we need to be really looking into.
I don't think that we need additional Section 8 housing. The demand that I have, and I have a mailer coming out, actually housing is one of the issues that I was addressing. I've had a couple people come in our store over the past few years that were older folks, and I hadn't seen them in a while. And I said, well, where have you been? Well, we moved to this village or that village outside of the Cumberland area because there was no senior housing. There is a demand for single-story, maintenance-free senior housing in our area because of our demographics. We were looking closely at how we're going to redevelop the old Allegany High School site, and I know the city is looking very carefully at how they're going to redevelop the Memorial Hospital site. But these guys have it right that our housing market, in some places, it's just been left to deteriorate over the years, and you can see it. You can see it. So how can we get in and redevelop these areas? There is a market for turnkey family residential residences. So, you know, looking at those ideas and going forward how we can tackle that, I think those are the housing needs that we have. The lofts that were done downtown at the Footer Dye Works building, there you go. They went in no time at all, but what it was working professionals, younger people that might not be ready to set up roots yet in the area that were looking for a nice place to live. I think they had hospital people. I think they might have had some people from Northrop Grumman, working professionals. So I think those three are the aspects of housing that we need to seriously look at and pursue.
Well, I'll answer you directly. I'm not in favor of any more Section 8 housing. We actually voted against enlarging that area in Allegany County in 2012. Workforce housing is a completely different subject that we can go on and go on and go on about. But when you're looking at Section 8 housing, we're in a region that sits between Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Richmond, and Baltimore. And they actually try to promote Cumberland, Maryland for Section 8 housing. And I'm trying to say this in a nice way. Some of what it brings is not conducive to our area, our region, our kids, our people here. So, without getting into a whole big dialogue on other housing that's needed, you know, Cumberland Chase is coming online. There's several other areas that's coming online. But Section 8 housing, we have enough.
Yeah, I think Creed's right on that there is quite a bit of Section 8 housing. What I've been hearing when I've been out knocking on doors and talking to people is we need a much bigger mix of housing. We need townhouses for people. We need the upper story loft housing for people to rent. Those professionals that are coming in, they want to rent first before they think about buying. So we need to increase that. We also need to increase the residents for single family homes. We definitely need some housing in some villages that we could build for our elderly. We need to keep them in the area. One way to keep them here is to get some good housing that's a mix of use of housing and other amenities that they can get right within their neighborhood. We also need to be able to build some single family residence that is workforce. And again, defining that, everybody has maybe a little bit, but that's for the everyday worker to have a place to buy that he can afford or she can afford or they can afford together, that they can have a home that they can move into that's affordable to them and also help to build up. But again, the other part of that equation is we have to eliminate the blight. We have to start tearing down stuff. As much as it's not the most positive thing to do, it is about getting rid of that, but then we need to come back and redevelop it. I will tell you, I've spoken with many of the people in the area who do what we call house flipping. I think what we need to do is get with them and get with the realtors and maybe start trying to concentrate their efforts. Right now, everybody just buys a house wherever they can find one and they flip it. I think we need to concentrate them into certain areas, and as we eliminate that blight, maybe we have these people that already are doing this come in and fix up the houses that are left in that neighborhood, and then we can revitalize it neighborhood by neighborhood instead of house by house.
Any other questions?
Wow.
Yay!
Wow.
Yeah, in the house. I got a question for you guys on infrastructure. You got some bridges down now for 5 years, 5+ years. The federal government's supposed to spend a lot of money on infrastructure and things like that. What's your thoughts on how we can get some things accomplished with the bridges? You know, 3 or 4 down in Cumberland, and some of our other infrastructure, and how we can maybe get some money put towards that.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of money that's coming out now, new infrastructure bills throughout the federal government, the state government. Again, with my experience in working with government, I know where those grants are, I know where that money is. We need to look at that, but there's not an easy fix to infrastructure. It's a very expensive fix all the way around. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not going to be one time when we get a bunch of money and we can fix everything we have. It's going to be a constant looking at where are the needs, what can we do, and how can we fix it. But we also need to work with our state and federal partners on finding that money, finding those efforts that we can do so we can fix up that infrastructure.
There's generally 2 large pots of money for infrastructure, well, 3. USDA, depends on if you're looking at water and sewer, MDE through the state of Maryland. The federal bridge program is a completely separate issue, and the county does quite well actually every year, because the county's got roughly 200+ bridges on 550 miles of road. With Cumberland, the county actually helped take the lead with several bridge projects. The Baltimore Street Bridge is getting fixed there over the flood control was a large portion of that money come from the county's bridge fund that we turned over to them. The bridges on Washington Street, Fayette Street and stuff, that's a separate issue, because right there, the actual railroad has the authority over the bridges because it crosses over their tracks. So until the railroad actually wants to work with the city a little closer, which the city has been trying extremely hard. And actually, I'll just say this while we're here, Commissioner Shade actually called the CEO of CSX one night at his home to try to get some help with a couple of those bridges, and actually got nowhere. But when you get into the water and sewer side, USDA, we do quite well every year with them, and hopefully we'll keep going, because without water, sewer, and roads, it don't matter what you have, nothing will develop. So, thanks, Greg.
Per some of our discussions and agreements that were in place while I was still at the city of Cumberland, I can't see any reason that construction on the Cumberland Bridge has not been taking place already. I know there was discussion over the other 2 bridges regarding height requirements. Okay, that was to accommodate for 2-tier train cars going through there. Well, there's been another 4 years go by, so I mean, how serious are they about needing this extra space when they have not addressed the existing bridges? There was some back and forth years ago regarding who actually owned bridges. At that time, the city did take ownership, and after that was when they were struck. So they just destroyed the city's property. I know, talking to, I think Creed was there at one of our meetings, we discussed this with the Maryland Department of Transportation. They have had issues trying to get CSX to the table or to move on things. I think particularly the Johnson Street Bridge in the Baltimore area was an issue they had with them. The only answer, I think, maybe eventually would be the federal help from our federal delegation, and whatever action would have to be taken. But it's been slow moving, it's disappointing, and like I said, regarding the height requirements, there's no reason that Cumberland Street should not be under construction at this time.
Great question, and I echo a lot of the comments that were already made. There we go. You know, I think working with not only the state and federal partners to look at some funding opportunities to help repair some of these properties. And I also understand the bridge situation there in Washington Street and some of the height restrictions of CSX. And again, I think it takes us to kind of pressure them. But again, we're in a situation where they make that decision, and it's unfortunate that there's very little that we can do. But on the other flip side here, I think it's also important to work with the municipalities. The bridges span, of course, across county grounds. But some of them are within the city limits, some of them are within the city limits of Westerport and other towns and municipalities across Allegheny County. So working with the county, towns, mayors, and councils to kind of prioritize some of these projects, I think is vitally important. The other thing that, I hate to go back a question, but Creed had mentioned the USDA pot of money and endorsed the Maryland Department of Transportation and Environment. USDA also has some great home loans for some new home buyers. And so, one of the things working in healthcare that I find vitally important there is that we kind of promote these to individuals, a lot of opportunities and pots of money that people can pull from. They're very unaware. And so again, working with not only the state and federal government to repair some of the projects across Allegheny County, which is vitally important, but also educating our public on what's out there and opportunities for them that are available.
I think there are two separate issues here, the bridge issue and the water and sewer issue. So we'll take the bridge issue first. Commissioner Caparelli's right. There's absolutely no reason that bridge on Cumberland Street isn't not only started, but finished. And the other two, if it's a height requirement, if it's this, if it's whatever the regulation is, the bottom line is we ran into a problem and we stopped. And that is endemic of how things happen, not putting anything on workers in Allegheny County, but that's endemic of how a lot of problems don't get solved. We run into an issue and we stop. If elected, if that means that the CEO of CSX is going to get a phone call at 5 o'clock in the morning from me every single day until it's fixed, if it means Congressman Trone, his phone is going to ring at midnight every night until it's fixed, if it means I'm going to be a pain in the ass to every person in Washington until it gets done, it needs to be done. There's a problem. I understand that. We run into a height restriction. There's a regulation. There's a law. That law exists for a reason. There's a solution for it. There has to be a solution for it. We're going to solve it. Switching to sort of the water and sewer issue, we're right. We are structurally, as far as infrastructure, very old in this county, and it is a piecemeal situation. We see things in Cumberland, right? It's sort of this neighborhood grew here, this neighborhood grew here, and it's not one cohesive system. It's kind of piecemeal. And it involves, working on it one step at a time. We saw it in Georges Creek when the paper mill closed, and the towns of Luke and Westernport were worried where we're going to get our water from because it used to come from the middle. I think to a degree that situation has resolved itself, but there are tons of other situations like that. In Mount Savage and Barrelville, they worried about where they're going to get their municipal water from, and the county sort of helped with that a few years ago. But it's just an issue of being persistent and not settling until the issue is solved.
Any other questions? This is your opportunity.
Yeah, I've been very disheartened over the years to see that as I drive out 220 past the prisons, that the sports fields and the basketball courts and everything are in much better condition than what we see at our schools. And I think if we're going to talk about families wanting to settle in Allegheny County and raise families here, that our prisons shouldn't look like prestigious organizations while our schools look like rundown dumps. It's very apparent at Bell Elementary. The pavement constantly had grass growing up through it. You didn't see that in the prison. You look at the sidewalks here in front of Fort Hill, they look like they all need jackhammered up and repaired. You don't see that in the prison. So why are we providing for our families and our children growing up in Allegheny County substandard facilities when we're allowing the prisons to come in here and look like the Taj Mahal?
Couldn't agree with you more, and I see that at a lot of our school facilities and a lot of our public facilities all the time. Specific to the prison, and I know you know this, that's the state. The state maintains the prison, so that we can't take money out from them to do that. But you're right. As far as providing, recreation for our kids or things here at school, that is, we're getting close, Tanya. You're right, and I think part of the issue is that because we are a county that is, as far as population and economic, because we are in decline and have been for quite some time, there is a finite amount of money that goes around it. I mean, we talked before, I think 39% of the county's budget goes to education. And, you know, if we have 68,000 people in this county and 39% of their income goes to education, if we can get to a point where we have 5, 10, 15,000 more people in this county paying that 39%, you know, there's a finite amount of money in the pot. And, you know, it's, you know, where do you pull from? Where do you cut from? I am not going to raise taxes. I am not ever going to raise income taxes in this county. The answer is not to take more money from the people that are here. The answer is to get more people here paying. So it's a matter of prioritization. It's a matter of what is important. And our kids are important, and they need something to do here. So you're right. It's something that needs to be worked on. And that would be a good thing to point out to the state. Of course, the folks in Annapolis probably aren't conducive to saying, well, the prisoners get this, so why can't our kids? Because they kind of support, you know, that the prison crowd. That's kind of their MO down in Annapolis. But pointing it out to them, you know, prison has a brand new recreation facility, you know, Crescent Town Park, Bell Elementary School playground, grass growing through the pavement, just like it was when I went there 25 years ago. That's bad. We need to address that. I agree.
I wholeheartedly agree with your concerns, and they definitely need to be addressed. And unfortunately, you know, Tom is right. The state prison system and the federal prison system, there's nothing we can do there, but our hands are tied. However, you know, this is truly an issue of resources. You look at the county population in the past 10 years of the census, from 2010 to 2020, we lost about 6,800 individuals. That's 6,800 taxpayers, which is a significant amount of money. So first we have to address how we can get some more people to live in Allegheny County to increase some of the resources. You know, the first thing also we would take a look at is the allocation as to where that's going and working with the school board to make sure that their priorities are straight in addressing some of these things. But when you look at the pool of money and the pool of the population, you know, that's truly the heart of the issue. When we lose population, we lose representation, and we lose dollars from the state, and we lose dollars from the federal government. And until that is addressed, we're not going to have extra money to do a lot of these extra projects without raising taxes to taxpayers.
I agree with you, sir. I grew up here, played on a lot of ball fields, and a lot of the ball fields that I used to play on aren't around anymore. I remember there was one out off of Rollins, and some of these were like sort of back out of the way, like they were almost privately owned, privately maintained. Now that's not to say that we couldn't do more. You know, we allocate money every year to open space funding that we have that goes to schools around here and different projects and different fields and such. How can we expand on that? How can we do more? I think that particularly we helped fund the Greenway Avenue Stadium renovation. Along with that funds, we had some money went out to different ballparks, I think particularly for dugouts and some other things in the area too. There's always more that can be done. I hear the need for basketball courts too from time to time. So I think collectively maybe taking a step back, seeing where the needs are, and working with the Board of Ed, you know, as a partner going forward to try to address more of these needs. There's always a need, and there should always be more for kids to do.
It is kind of funny though that the DOJ, the prison system, state of Maryland, has a much larger budget than the Department of Education does. That's just a fact. As far as our local fields, couldn't agree more. But we do have a very good relationship, and I hope that continues regardless who the board is going forward with the Board of Education. Our open space money flows freely through them. Open space money comes from the state. So actually, the board actually prioritizes their things and what they want done, and I don't want to pick a fight with them because I had 3 years of that the first term, and nothing gets done. The county has, oh my gosh, probably 15, 20 fields around the county total that we own. But we don't have a Parks and Rec department, so we depend on the communities to take care of the fields, and we actually do some funding through them, and they've been very successful. Little Orleans, Old Town, McCool. So it's a very tough question, but we're always there to help the Board of Ed. We've helped several times, but that would be a better question for the state officials, because I'd like to see how they would answer you on that, on why do you put more into your prison system than you do into your education departments. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's much more I can say other than, you know, we all agree with that. You know, there is more money in the Department services there than there is in education, but I agree with Creed that it's one of those areas where we need to work with the Board of Ed. They're the ones that determine the priorities of those projects and what projects get done first. We need to have a good relationship with them, work with them, need to work with them on getting maybe some more POS money in, and how can we draw in some more of that state money that pays for improving all the parks, not only the ones that county owns, but the ones that are around the schools. It is something that's been happening for a long time, and there's just not enough money to go around at this point. Again, I think Todd said it right. That, we have to first build up the population. The more people we can get here, the more people we're putting into that 39%, the more money we have to spend on the schools. We have capacity in the majority of our schools, so we have the room to grow. We just need to be able to grow, bring new people in so that we can maybe raise that pot of money up a little bit, maybe get some more things done. But it definitely has to be in partnership with the Board of Ed.
And going back to that partnership with the Board of Ed, it's my understanding there were massive amounts of COVID relief funds given to each Board of Education throughout the state, both at the state and federal level. Yet there's never been any discussion about that money. From the figures I had seen published, it was approximately an annual operating budget that was given to each Board of Education throughout the state of Maryland in COVID relief funds. Yet the board has not acknowledged or brought forward that information. Is that something the county would pursue against the Board of Education to find out if they received that money and what they're doing with it?
So the question was that he's heard that the Board of Eds across the state of Maryland have received all kinds of funding through COVID. He wanted to know what we would do to help the Board of Ed to spend that money and how much money they get. I don't have that answer, but again, it was money given to the Board of Ed. That's a question you need to ask to those candidates running for the Board of Ed.
I think the main question is what can the county commissioners do to hold the Board of Education accountable for how that's utilizing those funds?
Well, the only thing that we control, I guess, from the Board of Ed is their budget. So I guess we can look at what they're doing with those funds. Again, try to have that partnership to work with them to see what they're doing with the funding, how they're going to spend it, where their priorities are, and maybe work with them to try to determine some priorities of what that is. I don't know what amount of money they received to know, how much that is, or if it's enough to make a difference somewhere. But maybe Creed and those guys know that.
Yeah, they'll have to make that, public knowledge. So they submit to us twice a year for their budget review when they come in to do budget with us, and their budgets usually looks like an old Sears catalog. It's about that thick. But they actually do go through line by line. Then the next part of this, that everything has to 100% be submitted. They have to submit anyhow. It's through their audit, and their audit is actually part of our audit. So if
I
there's
believe they had a problem with their audit last year, didn't they?
Year before. Last year, they came through and flying colors. Actually, it was 3 years ago. They was actually got us zinged because they was 3 minutes late getting it to us. But since then, Larry McKenzie and the existing board right now has turned around dramatically. So
I wouldn't have a problem, having a discussion or even meeting with the board if we could lay out mutual ideas or concepts or how to utilize these funds. Ultimately, I assume the decision would be up to them, but being a working partner, particularly how much that we fund the Board of Ed, I can't see how that we couldn't work collectively together to have ideas, good ideas and sustainable ideas for how some of that money's spent, or just recommendations, I think, from the county.
I think to answer your question directly of holding their feet to the fire, I think it's important to ask those questions. Not being a sitting county commissioner, they know more about the audit process and what they need to submit to the county commissioners than I do. But definitely working collectively together to find the solution, I think, is vitally important. Working with our county administrator to ask some of those probing questions of the board. It seems like that those monies will be eventually published and made public knowledge, which I think is excellent, and I think that it's needed. But again, just working collectively with them to make sure that the money is being spent appropriately, but also, again, telling them and working with them and letting them know the partnership that exists and how much is funded through the county commissioners, and just kind of holding their feet to those fires and asking those probing questions.
Several things that have already been addressed. As far as funding for the school board, the county does appropriate a sum of funds for the school board that are delineated line by line. The county is still, I believe, the other two commissioners could confirm this, held to the standard of what's called maintenance of effort. So the idea that, you know, if the commissioners were to ask the board for some proof of something and they didn't give it to them, that we could punish the school board in a way of like withholding their funding. That's not viable by state law. State law requires that the county has to at least flat fund the school board every year. That being said, it is appropriate not only for the commissioners, but for everyone in the county, citizens generally, to push the school board and to be vigilant about wanting to know what has happened. I think it's in the last year or so, I think since the new superintendent has come in, public confidence in the school board has gone up, you know, over what has happened in years past. And I think the school board as a unit works more cohesively, and with county government works more cohesively since there's been a leadership change there. The fiscal year for the state actually ends on Thursday of this week, on June 30th. That's the last day of the fiscal year. So we should start to see some final, you know, tabulations, final results of what happened, and then the next audit process will begin then. And I think, Mr. Schweitzer, you're right. It's not only the job of the public, but us, the three commissioners, whomever the three commissioners are, as the representatives of the public, to make sure that it's what this county wants, what the citizens of this county wants, has been done. I can tell you, and your son can tell you too, they spent a ton of money on those stupid white cloth masks the whole time, because they're, oh my God, I bet there was 100,000 of them just in my building alone. But yeah, we need to ask those questions, and I want to see it on paper. I don't want to just hear everything was okay, everything's fine. I want to see it on paper. I agree.
Any other questions?
With regard to the state prison and Allegheny County, is there a work release program for the non-violent offenders or the short timers that maybe we can collaborate and get them to clean up some of the recreation areas? There's trash everywhere, every road is loaded with trash. Is there such a program, or could one be created?
Kathy, I don't know, but that's an excellent question. I believe there is something through the sheriff's office that does that, because I see them cutting grass all the time, like at the train depot and other places. I would think that the state would have something for that too. That's a great use of resources. I'll look into that.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the programs. I do see them quite frequently on different projects on the highway or across the county. That's a great thing to look into. I think that's a very viable option for cleaning up some of our streets and neighborhoods and parks and towns. So that's something that we would definitely look more into.
I know our sheriff's department has had programs like that going forward. Could the state maybe work with the county as to highlighting or directing particular areas that need the most help? Again, that's something we could look at. You know, again, it would have to be something that we discuss with state officials or prison officials.
The county absolutely does have that as, the sheriff's department of work services is actually out every day. They take care of the trail, they take care of other attributes that Allegany County owns. There's also a program through the federal prison where you can actually get them, but it has to have a sponsor, such as the municipality can get them this or that, and they have to be, there's certain government or certain rules that govern their work release and blah, blah, blah. The state government had it a few years ago. We actually had the secretary from the Department of Justice that's over the prisons come up and come to our meeting room and say, hey, we'd like to start a trial program. We'd like to look, and you mentioned sidewalks out front of the school here. We'd like to get our workforce out. We sent several letters, nothing. The county one is very active. What really hurt us bad though was once COVID hit and lockdown, we wasn't allowed to use the prisoners at all anymore. So then we went from having roughly a work crew of 15 to 20 every day down to 3 county employees trying to do what the prisoners done, and only recently got released to go back to work. And if COVID ratchets up again, federal government, state government will start screaming, they'll lock them back down again. So.
Yeah, I do know that there is a program right now that does that, as Creed said, that they go out, they take care of the Great Allegany Passage, they take care of a lot of other recreational and park areas throughout the county. Can we expand upon that program? I think so. There's a lot of restrictions the state puts on it about the number of supervisors you have to have, and that's what kind of hinder some of the municipalities and others doing that is there is a cost associated with that. Even though it's free labor for them to do it, you still have to have a certain amount of supervisors per however many people you have out there. So again, it costs money to have the supervisors out there, the more we can do. But I think there is opportunity to expand that program through the state and through the federal government.
Anyone else? I'll add one more question. It was kind of alluded to a little bit about Maryland's new Public Accountability Act for police. The new pact has several implications that have to be automatically imposed by local governments. And the county being the head agency, we have a lot of requirements we have to meet over the next 3 years. How willing are the commissioners going to be to help offset the funding that can't be achieved through other sources like grants?
It's going to be a tough one. Talked with the sheriff. Him and I have been friends since high school about this actually. All the different rules, regulations, the body cameras, all those type of things. There's one thing in finding money to come up with the expenses to buy all the new equipment and new rules and regulations they have to follow. It's going to be continuing money that needs to be set aside for training that's going to be required and for someone to look at those body cameras to keep all that information available and having it there. So it's going to be something that the county commissioners are going to have to look at. I don't know what that answer is at this time, but again, it is going to be a burden from a financial standpoint. Again, it's an unfunded mandate coming down from the state, so we have to find a way to do it. Again, I think there'll be plenty of grants to help us buy the equipment and do all that. It's going to be the tough part of sitting down with the sheriff and his department and figuring out how do we pay for this, maintenance of this in the long term of that.
I'm sorry, Tanya, I couldn't hear this.
It's the Maryland Police Accountability Act that was passed in 2021. There are several elements, part of that act, that are unfunded mandates. So whenever we can't find supplemental sources like grants, will the commissioners be willing to help offset those expenses as we try to roll out these initiatives over the next 3 years?
Yeah, that's a good question coming from you, someone that digs grants up for them. We'll have no choice. It's like everything else the state and feds throw at us. We'll have to. We've already had many discussions with the sheriff on this. We've sat down with the county attorney on this, the assistant county attorney. We know that we're going to have to hire more people now. It's going to take at least 2 more full-time positions that probably they'll have an affiliation with the sheriff's department, but they'll probably work directly for whoever's up here at this table or the county administrator. Simple things to review body cam footage, and then to see if who needs redacted. You can if I'll just use an example. If they was going after Dave and me and Bill were in that, we didn't give consent to show that, so everything has to be redacted. So just to take the example they showed us, just a 5-minute video to limit and take everything out of there that's not supposed to be there, blur it out, have it reviewed, have an attorney review it, is going to cost thousands of dollars just for a short video clip. And we'll have no choice. I mean, we have to do it. Whether the sheriff agrees or we agree, it's irrelevant. It has to be done.
We've been working closely with the sheriff on obviously a lot of issues leading up to this point. I think within the past year, we worked closely with his department about additional hires at the state's attorney's office, things along those lines. Going ahead, we're in this together. We're going to have to continue to work with them. What budget items, how can we maintain a trimmed budget by having funds available for these issues that are going to come up. We're going to have additional Rocky Gap funding available too. Is this something that we could look like a small portion of that could go to help offset some of these costs going forward? Because they're going to continue coming, until we have everything sort of settled in over the next couple of years with these changes they're making with the police departments. So I think we'll be okay, but again, we're going to work closely with the sheriff going forward on these issues.
First, absolutely, working with the sheriff's office to make sure that these mandates are funded. The unfortunate thing in Annapolis is they often don't do the right thing, and they leave a lot of unfunded mandates. You know, I truly wish that we would treat the criminals like criminals and the cops like heroes, but unfortunately that's not necessarily the case in the state of Maryland. However, again, working closely with the Sheriff's Office to make sure that we do meet the regulations that they put forth, I think is necessarily important. Looking at different grants and opportunities there, I think is going to be vital, not only for this particular mandate that you had mentioned, but other opportunities for the county. And working with the department, the county attorney, make sure that everything's reviewed properly and that we do meet the criteria for a lot of these bills that were passed is going to be vitally important. And, you know, Commissioner Caparelli mentioned the Rocky Gap Fund. I think there could be an opportunity there. There's been some increases over the years. It seems there's a small portion there to utilize to fund some of these unfunded mandates handed down by the state. Could be an opportunity as well.
I think this is an example of one of the good things about Allegheny County, and one of the sort of silver linings about the small population and about the close-knit group that we have is that whoever the Board of Commissioners are will be able to work with the sheriff and will be able to get those things done because we know everybody. I mean, if it was up to me, if I could write the sheriff a blank check today, I would do it and give him and his department whatever they need, because they are heroes and they are what keep us safe. And the bottom line is that it has to be done. I mean, it was said earlier by the other commissioners, it has to be done. So if that is the case, we need to do what Allegheny County does and work with people that we know and people that we get along with and like to make sure that it's done in what we consider to be the right way. And if I could sort of go 1 degree off from what your question is, a couple weeks ago when the local police accountability board was created by the county commissioners, and the current Board of Commissioners took some heat for doing that. But I think it was explained earlier, you know, this is something that had to be done. It was a state law that it has to be done. So I think the way to do that, I mean, if it doesn't get done, if the commissioners don't create it, then the Maryland Attorney General is going to take the county to court, and then our county attorney is going to be paid thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to go to court and fight a losing battle, and we're going to lose. And then the state attorney general is going to appoint the board for us, and then they'll put state people on it, and they'll do what the state of Maryland wants to do. So I think a better answer to that question is to create the board, do what Allegheny County needs to be done, put people on it who are going to do what Allegheny County needs done. So yes, we're in the unfortunate situation that we live in a state that doesn't support the police, but we in Allegheny County do. So we need to make sure that we have as much control as we can. We'll find the money somewhere, we have to, and we had to create, the commissioners had to create that board, so I think they did it the right way. I think they created it, they're going to put local people on it who support the police. That's a good thing.
Thank you. Anyone else? I appreciate all of you coming out tonight. I appreciate the questions that came up tonight. This is recorded, and we will have it posted by the end of the week, so folks will be able to go back and look at the candidate responses. Look at who showed up today and make your decision for the ones that you want to go forward to represent you on July 19th. Thank you all for coming out.